For clarification, let us clarify some things. I have not seen one plan that proposes to connect a causeway to Marie Island. I have not seen one plan that includes building anything on Marie Island. Has never happened. So for the other side to continue standing up and down and believe that they've been successful in changing the government's position, that is just a fallacy. And that's dishonesty. That's intellectual dishonesty. For clarification, let us clarify some things. I have not seen one plan that proposes to connect a causeway to Marie Island. I have not seen one plan that includes building anything on Marie Island. Has never happened. So for the other side to continue standing up and down and believe that they've been successful in changing the government's position, that is just a fallacy. And that's dishonesty. That's intellectual dishonesty.
What is the point of the causeway?
To create a project that is very, very exciting, to reclaim land that is much more tourism friendly in the South.
So, Mr. Speaker, when St. Lucia has a government such as this, United Workers' Party, that destroys millions of dollars in assistance from sympathetic countries that are trying to assist us in charting the true and real development of our country, we are destroying our country's reputation. Further, it does not create an improved framework for us to attract foreign assistance when the Prime Minister makes shamefully irresponsible statements in the international community to the effect that they're focusing too much on fighting corruption. And if I'm wrong, the Prime Minister can correct me. A source quoted him as saying, at the last OAS summit, and I quote, and the Prime Minister is free to emerge on a point of order, if that's not true. They said transparency, he said transparency should not be onerous, that it takes precedence over development, unquote.
So, Mr. Speaker, he invited me. I never made such statement. I have not been to any OAS summit meetings.
For those external partners who want to help us, we ask that you coordinate your programs in tandem with government's determined needs and assist in such ways that builds partnerships and does not impose a particular set of government's mechanisms. We ask you recognize that transparency should not be so onerous that it takes precedence over development.
He said transparency should not be onerous, that it takes precedence over development, unquote.
Mr. Speaker, he invited me. I never made such statement.
We ask you recognize that transparency should not be so onerous that it takes precedence over development.
Why is Grenada just dropped to below $10?
I said a while ago, Grenada's price averages less than $10. That is untrue.
I never said it was under $10. I said it was under $11.
Grenada just dropped to below $10.
The John Compton Dam desiltation project, Mr. Speaker, as you know, are aware, all customers of the Water and Sewage Authority have been making a contribution towards the desilting of the John Compton Dam. Mr. Speaker, now that the construction of the disposal pit to take the silt from the dam has been completed, we anticipate, weather permitting, that the long-awaited desilting operations will be completed in this financial year.
Ezekiel, garçon, levez, garçon. Ezekiel, garçon, levez, garçon. Garçon, Chastanet gagne pour tout plan, pays, garçon. Et pour l'académie, garçon. Ezekiel, levez, garçon. T'as qui veut Ezekiel, garçon? Ezekiel, levez, garçon.
To distill the John Compton Dam to bring it back to its original state, it will take about 8 years. Okay?
And blah, blah, blah. When the horse racing truck begins, young people from everywhere will be employed.
About jobs.
How do you know that, Colin?
From DSH. Of course I know that.
To employ, I'm hoping close to over 1,000 young persons.
No, we're looking at over 1,500 jobs.
This continual allegation that the courts found that Alan Chastanet lied or did anything wrong in the Tuxedo Villa case. I challenge anyone to find any document from the courts that says that.
Here is what the judgment said, word for word. One area of inconsistency between Mr. Chastanet's affidavit and oral evidence relates to the timing of his meetings with Dr. Mandesi after the customs investigation was launched. His affidavit is very clear. He met Mr. Mandesi in May or early June and advised him to meet with the Comptroller of Customs. In cross-examination, he said that the meeting took place after Dr. Mondesi had received a letter from Customs. The only letter that Dr. Mondesi received from Customs was the letter dated 26 June 2008, but the meeting with Dr. Mondesi took place in May or early June, and so it could not have been after Dr. Mondesi received the letter from Customs. Mr. Chastanet deposed in his affidavit that he was not at the meeting because he was scheduled to travel out of the state on that date. He said in his cross-examination that he was 1000% sure he was off island, yet the minutes of the meeting show on page 1 that he was present at the meeting, and on page 2 that 3 ministers are listed as being absent. Mr. Chastanet is not included in the list of absent ministers. The judge should have dealt with the issue of Mr. Chastanet's presence at the meeting. If he had done so, the inevitable conclusion would have been that his evidence was not credible or reliable.
The idea of Sandy Beach. They said, why have I not informed people that are we developing on Sandy Beach? I said, no. Sandy Beach is to remain a national park. I said, no. I said, no. Sandy Beach is to remain a national.
The other thing is with regards to the visa. And again, it's politics. So when I made this statement, the statement came out that Alan Chastanet has promised that we're going to get U.S. visas. I challenge anybody to go back and listen to what the statement, because if I'm not mistaken, it was an address that we did to my convention. I said that we can be in a position in which we can get U.S. visas.
And the goal of the United Workers' Party is to make sure that the day will come soon, that St. Lucians will not need a visa to go to America. Because America will be jealous of the life that St. Lucians have. They will not be fearful that St. Lucians are looking to migrate to the United States of America. On the United Workers' Party, that will happen.
Chastanet say, if you make him Prime Minister, but I can tell my bella pays, ou ka moute Canada sans visa, ou ka aller en Amérique sans visa. We all are going to become refugees because it is only refugees that can go to the state without visas. That is what he's telling you.
Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chastanet shed some light on the rumored formation of the Border Patrol Agency. The minister explained that the agency's true intent is to increase the functionality of the agencies currently responsible for border security, in effect upgrading the already existing Customs and Excise unit.
The goal here is to be able to strengthen our borders, and we're looking at integrating a couple of our agencies. So one is immigration, 2 is customs, the other one is the quarantine, and the third one is the marine police. So the new border control would actually be those 4 entities merging into one. And I have no idea where the idea of a statutory body came from. And I have no idea where the idea of a statutory body came from. I have no idea where the idea of a statutory body came from. I have no idea where the idea of a statutory body came from. This, security is of a national interest.
We have over $1.5 billion US of foreign direct investment that's committed to come to St. Lucia over the next 2 years.
How much is it?
1.2 billion.
Over the next 2 years?
Next 2 years.
Starting?
In January.
In January, okay.
But you remember you indicated that there's 1.5 billion or so committed to St. Lucia?
I never committed anything. That there is no intentions on my government's part to privatize OKE. And there never has been. So hopefully, again, I'm on record. I make it publicly known clearly that there is no intentions to be able to privatize OKE. Okay? So this sinister perspective, Mr. Speaker, by members of the opposite side, to look at something that is a simple issue, to dig deep further to believe there's some alternative motive other than simply protecting the workers of St. Lucia, I have to say to you, is farcical.
The speculation is rife that the Owen King EU hospital is being privatized, with assertions coming from various sources, including former government ministers. Prime Minister Alan Chastanet has shed some light on the situation, indicating that the involvement of a third party for the operations of the hospital is indeed in the cards, but will not reveal specifics. This coming a few days after a memorandum of understanding was signed to with the EU, where the Prime Minister indicated that the government has been doing and will continue to do all in its power to have the facility finally opened in its entirety.
We are in advanced discussions with a third party to take on certain responsibilities in the hospital. The first one really is the radiology center. And then we'll be following up with that with hopefully a comprehensive management structure. And then once that's completed, we'll also then include the hospital in the south. But underlining whatever agreements we have is being able to change some of the fundamentals in St. Lucia.
Chastanet says he anticipates the opening of the Owen King EU by the end of 2018. Privatization of the hospital, according to the Prime Minister, is the preferred route.
We've made that point clear, is that we would prefer to go into a private structure. We've made that point clear, is that we would prefer to go into a private structure. We've made that point clear.
Leader of the opposition and Miku South MP, Alan Chastanet, who appeared to scoff at the news, did not miss out on the opportunity to take a dig at Frederick in his very first contribution to the House debate on Tuesday.
I also want to take note of and congratulate the member from Castries Central on his 3-day pass to New York to attend the UN meeting. This is the same 3-day visa that is normally bestowed on other individuals who do not have visas in the U.S. So I hope that he's able to make the best use of his time for his 3 days.
Contrary to the opposition leader's claims, the MP will reportedly be in the U.S. for more than a week.
Member for Castries Central, who is headed to the United States of America on official business, to deliver an address on behalf of CARICOM at the United Nations.
I think that there's something that we underestimate grossly in this region, and that was the U.S. policy to repatriate nationals. Honestly, it's one of the most horrific things that the U.S. could have ever done to this region. And I assure you that when you start looking at when that policy became implemented, and then look at the corresponding years, a huge spike. I mean, it's almost a coefficient of 1. You start understanding the numbers. So, you know, in the case of St. Lucia, I see some years 800 people.
800?
Correct. In Jamaica, it's in the thousands on a continuous basis. So that's why I'm saying I don't think that we all appreciate the magnitude.
That 800 is for St. Lucia, no?
Correct. In 1 year.
The Prime Minister pinned responsibility for crime in the Caribbean on the United States. A July 13th missive from the U.S. government states, quote, funding from the State Department's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement, INL, increased 31% between fiscal year 2015 and fiscal year 2016. On Prime Minister Chastanet's deportation claims, the United States government confirms statistics indicate that the total number of deportees returned to St. Lucia in the last 5 years was less than 100. In 2015, there were only 8 such cases.
I mean, I've just never seen grown men lie to the extent that they do.
The last one is security. When I came in as Prime Minister, I did not realize that the security of our country was as vulnerable as it was. None of the Coast Guard boats were working. 0. Okay? It was amazing to me that when we took office, that the state of our inventory, that none of our coastal boats, Coast Guard boats, were functioning. 0.
It was this seeming deplorable ignorance which led him to further state that no Coast Guard boats were operational when he came into office in 2011. The truth is, all except 2 boats were operational. The Defender was operational, The 2 safe boats were operational. The 2 Brunswick boats needed a pontoon change. It has the same old engines. They were operational. Only PO4 and PO6 were not operational at the time and remains that way up to today.
This untruth is in print, big and bold. The first jazz festival was not the brainchild of Alan Chastanet. The idea came from notable St. Lucians like Miss Delia Fossois and Luther Fossois. Sadly, Alan Chastanet has been peddling the lie that he created the jazz festival for years. He repeated that lie so often and kept taking credit for successive festival innovations that a US public relations firm run by the sister of the Olympic gold medalist Jackie Joyner-Kersee took legal action. Chastanet settled the case, paying her PR firm some $80,000 US. By the way, that 80 grand US for that lie he told, you paid for it.
When people take things and don't understand what is it we're attempting to be able to do, about empowering people. I remember on many of occasions being on the platform in the boulevard or in Soufriere or in Gros Islet during our campaign and talking about ching 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 and what ching 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 was. And I said, I know that there are going to be people who are going to come around and talk about ching 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 is actual money in your pocket. Ching 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 is about empowerment. Empowerment. And I challenge anyone to go and look at my speech.
It is no longer acceptable that a young person puts his hand in his pocket just to be able to hold his hand. He must be able to put his hand in his pocket to be able to get money to be able to buy food for his children. So with respect to the current level of suffering, the UWP will introduce certain measures that we will call 5 to stay alive.
Talk about ching 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 is actual money in your pocket. Ching 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 is about empowerment.
Ching 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 in their pockets. It is no longer acceptable that a young person puts his hand in his pocket just to be able to hold his hand. He must be able to put his hand in his pocket to be able to get money to be able to buy food for his children. Every single St. Lucian must have their own card. Ching 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 in their pockets. That's what the ching 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 is. The ching 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 is not money. The ching 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 is your empowerment. And do not let anybody stop you.
Number 9. The Prime Minister informed, and I love this one, the Prime Minister informed this Parliament that it was the Labour Party that bought the abandoned Daher Mall in Bois de Ouage. He says truth. Can I play the clip? I don't know that. Okay. The truth. A news report, the Prime Minister says that's true, you know. A news report was carried by HTS on August 4th, 2009. Clearly states that Dr. Anthony was always against the purchase of the mall. The Prime Minister is quoted as saying, and I quote, Dr. Anthony is playing cheap politics by not supporting the purchase of the building. Furthermore, he says, government has a plan for paying the building, for the building to pay itself. That's what the Prime Minister said. Even here today, he's saying that it is true that it's Kenny Anthony that bought the mall. And number 10, let me tell you, this is very Trumpian in behavior.
The tourism minister calls the decision to purchase the building a sound investment for the bank and the government. He says it is a win-win situation for the lending institution and the country.
Is it fair to say that after you invest $30 or $40 million and you fix up the building, that it has a value of $60 million? Our estimates are that it'll be having a greater value. And the bank itself, what would be the rationale for the bank? The building has sat there and nobody has taken it up. The building was free for anybody to take it up. So the bank itself was happy to get this off its books and for it to become now an active asset.
Chastanet says Dr. Anthony is playing cheap politics by not supporting the purchase of the building. Furthermore, he says the government has a plan for making the building pay for itself.
The government is also looking at opportunities of maybe selling some of the floors
in terms of investors, where they can buy a floor of the building, and that the government then could reduce the substantial part of the loan. All those are being looked at, but those are being looked at in the purview of now there's a separate company. This is not even something that's being run by government. There's a separate company with its own board that's been given the mandate by cabinet in order to make sure the finances on this building work.
Dr. Anthony has called for the loan that would be used to finance purchase of the building to go towards the economic stability of St. Lucians. He says the time is not right to purchase a building he described as derelict.
Save the jobs, save the jobs. Give people a chance to work. The 33 million you spend on the hair building, you should have taken it and gone build roads, drains, employ people.
Substantiated by the audit department that there was a joint account open in the UK between the High Commissioner and the Ambassador Jufaldi.
Mr. Speaker, no, at this point, you step in out of line, Mr. Speaker.
But what is the point?
He's misleading us. I have never had a joint account with anybody in my life. Not my ex-wife, not my children, nobody. And I will refer that to the Privileges Committee. He will have to present evidence in his house. And I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, what the mercy I showed on Chico, you won't get it.
But you already told me that.
I have never had a joint account with anybody
member for
in my life.
South.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, I want to serve notice. I will refer this to the Privileges Committee.
Member for
Miku
South, the member for Castries South has said he has never had a joint account with anyone, let alone another ambassador.
So, Mr.
Do you stand by your statement, or are you going to withdraw it?
No, I stand by the statement, Mr. Speaker, because
that was a lie.
We got this through the back door.
It restricts local fishermen from leaving port for a period of 7 days, from Monday, November 2nd to Sunday the 8th.
Reports continuously come back to us that persons are bringing people in illegally up to last week. Which started from somebody coming in through the back door.
Contrary to the Prime Minister's so far unproven claims of illegal border entry from Martinique as the source of the outbreak, health officials told reporters no link has been established to date.
I cannot conclusively say that because, like I said, in contact tracing, it's only we go by what the confirmed case tells us.
There were brave persons who are coming in through the back door.
It must be noted that neither the Prime Minister nor the Ministry of Health have been able to present evidence to the public supporting the claim that the spike is the result of backdoor entry.
You hear lie? That is lie. Lie? You hear lie?